Here we are. Good evening.
Good evening, Courtney.
Here we go. Tonight we're talking about episode 716, 100,000 Angels, written by Matt and Tony, directed by Joss Agnew. I'm Courtney Williams, producer of Outlander Behind the Scenes. I am a longtime book fan and show fan, and I'm just going to mention that I haven't really read any of the Lord John Gray novellas. I don't know why.
Oh, interesting.
I know. I don't know why that is, but I'm getting the feeling as we go along here, these novellas are more important
Yeah.
to the story. I'm starting with water, and I think I'm going to transition to my frosty beer again. I need one today. So we'll see. That'll be like a mystery in the show. Right now, it's Carmen and myself. Catherine is under the weather, and Antoinette's power is out because of in Atlanta, they've had a big snowstorm. Now, Catherine is just saying she's going to join in a moment. So
Yes. Awesome.
tonight is going to just be
The three of us.
as surprising and mysterious as the episode itself. Wow. The first time I watched this episode, I was so emotional. It was just like crying after crying and then more crying and then harder crying. And then Ron Moore said at one point, in fact, that's why he took the scene, Jamie's scene, out of episode 207 Faith, because he said you can't have the audience crying for the entire episode. Well, clearly Matt does not subscribe to that philosophy, because I literally was crying for almost this whole episode. And I think this episode is really well done. I don't think it's replacing the last episode as my favorite of the season, but this episode had to accomplish more. And I think they were very skillful in how they did it. And for that reason, I mean, I just think it was really well done. And I didn't enjoy it, but I appreciated it.
Hello, everybody. I'm Carmen Schmidt. I write the Outlander Anatomy blog. I have been a book fan and a show fan since 2014, so I'm fairly new to the genre. But I did a lot of reading in between then and a lot of watching. And I'm a professor of human anatomy, having taught about 11,000 medical students over the years. And I very much enjoy the science and the medicine that we always get greeted with in these episodes. And I love to comment on that. I am drinking tea tonight. I've had eggnog, spiked eggnog for the last few times, but this time I'm going to tea. And I would rate this as a very good episode. It's not my favorite. Last one is my favorite still. But it was very good. And I think I did a lot of tearing up, even though I've seen it several times. I watched it last night again. I once again shed tears at various points in it, but I think there was a lot of heavy emotion in this episode. Death, injury, recovery, loss. It just was a lot of heavy stuff, and I think that's why the tears flowed for me. It was pretty heartrending, especially in a few places that I can think of. So we'll talk about those, I'm sure.
Yes, we will. What was your favorite scene?
My favorite scene, I had a hard time choosing, actually, because there were quite a few in this episode that could have easily come to the first. But I really loved that scene of Jamie helping Claire P. Now, because I'm an anatomist, probably, but the concern, the care, the gentleness, the love, the lack of shame or making her feel embarrassed and everything. It was just his emotional maturity was just perfect in that scene. I just loved it. And and finally she was resisting, but finally she released herself in every way. But not only just just to relieve herself, but also to accept what he was offering her. He was right. He shouldn't leave her sitting on a bucket when she has just had you know a musket ball go through her side or into her side. So it was the right thing to do. But I just thought it just is perfect, Jamie. Just all of the good things about that man that we love so much was on display in that particular. What a husband.
One thing I really liked about that scene, I think that was the kickoff, yeah, of a sequence, or not even a sequence because they weren't all in a row, but we got to see vulnerable Claire. And she fought it and she resisted it in that scene. Um, and then she was like, I'm with Jamie. I can be vulnerable. I can trust him. And I loved that the show went there because, they haven't always done that. And he was right there being exactly what she needed. And I really appreciated that we got to see that side of Claire
I
in that
I
scene.
do think that is in the book. I couldn't find
Yeah.
it. I was looking for it, but I didn't have enough time to spend on it. And I didn't have the right keywords to search for it. So I didn't find it, but I'm pretty sure I've read it in Moby.
I remember that being in the
Yeah.
book too. Yeah. This was really hard for me to pick favorite scenes,
Yeah.
also because just so good. I think I'm gonna stick with the Jamie and Claire theme. I loved the scene after Master Raymond, she sees him in the dream or whatever it is, when she asks Jamie if he thinks that she'll see Faith when she dies. Like that to me was such a beautiful scene, and Claire's almost maybe most vulnerable moment in this episode. And I thought Katrina played that beautifully,
She did.
and Sam played that beautifully. And it was just a raw, open, hopeful, vulnerable, um, and then Jamie was right there to reassure her. And even the way he handled, like, did you see Master Raymond? He wasn't like, no, you crackpot, or what like some people might be like, oh, okay, let me write this down, she's hallucinating, but he just met her, and he continued to meet her in that scene, and I thought it was really beautiful and
Mm.
really well done by Kat and by Sam.
I agree. It was on my list too. It's part of a sequence, but the scene that I liked of the sequence very much was when uh, William and Jamie went to find Jane and
Mm.
rescue her. Um, it was very true to the book. And I thought that always pleases me, almost always pleases me when that happens. But they were very true to the book and they didn't go wandering around, uh, making up stuff. Um, and one of the things that I thought was why it struck me so much was my husband, who's not a book reader, was watching it with me. And when William comes around the end of the bed and looks down at her, and her wrists are slashed, he said, "Oh," my husband said, "Oh." He was not, that was not what he thought was going to happen.
Yeah.
And he was so moved by, the seeming futility that those men must have felt in that circumstance. I just thought it was really well done. It was not a happy scene. I'm not trying to say that, but I just thought it
No.
was extremely well executed by all of them, actually, including Jane. But you know, Williams, her part was, um, but William, uh, his acting in that was very, very good too. And his, you know, he must have felt tremendous guilt because he swore that he would protect them, you know, and now he can't. He was unable to do it for Jane. And I like that scene very much for those reasons.
Yeah, I liked that one too. Sam's face, or I mean Jamie's face when he comes around the bed and sees, and just, it's a combination of like, uh, oh, like your husband, oh, and my son, like he's the suffering, and then we
Yeah.
have to get out of here, like playing, balancing all that, and yeah, they all did a great job. I mean, this season 7B is
Pretty good.
pretty amazing. And wow, so happy. Claire and Fanny in the graveyard. Again, just Flory is, wow, what a little powerhouse. And that scene, I felt like it was so organic. Like I felt like I could see Katrina's being blown away by this little actress and what she was evoking in her, which just lent even more to the scene itself. Um, just the genuine, there was such a tender pain in that scene that was conveyed by both of them. And I also really loved the visual, the way they were framed on the log in the scene. Just very artfully. And then the close-ups and everything. I love this director.
That was a really powerful scene. I agree. There's something about that scene I want to talk about a little bit later myself. By the way, Catherine has just written, and she is having stomach cramps, so she's not going to be able to join us, sadly.
The twists and turns.
I know it's like a season of
It's the season finale in the finale. Okay, well,
Okay, so the next scene that I really liked very much was between Claire, Lord John, and Jamie. I thought that was a great exchange between the three of them, and it also quite closely follows the book. Another example of the sort of thing that I enjoy a lot. But I thought, you know, Lord John and Claire have a true affection for each other. It is not a sexual bond, not like Jamie and Claire, but it is a true, like a platonic love for each other.
yeah.
I think they have mutual respect. I think she really appreciates that saved her life because he did, very likely.
And
I just thought Sam's response was priceless. His facial expressions were perfect. I mean, you know, he was just glaring at Lord John, and I am sure the day will come when they will make their peace with
yeah,
each other. But in the meantime, that was just terrific acting. And I think Lord John has found his own footing instead of being constantly cowed by Jamie, you know, and under this yoke his uh, of his attraction to him. Somehow this has freed him, it seems like. So that he can, you know, he's more of a man to me on his own now than he was before, and I just really enjoyed the whole scene. I just thought it was great, and you know, and he modified his my dear, which we know is in the book, and that he did address her that way, but And then he modified it, twice with Mrs. Fraser just to keep Jamie from beating him up again, I suppose. But I
Yeah.
really enjoyed that scene.
Yeah, I liked the three-way play too, as she's sitting there going, "Oh God, here they go. They're gonna do their little rutting thing," and then she can finally say, "Well, good, that's done then." I thought it was pretty brave of her to reach her hand out to hold Lord John's hand after that.
Yeah.
I thought also David did a really good job of conveying his loss because he in that scene he lost his deer. He can no longer call her that. And he's on the outs with Jamie.
Yeah.
There's and he just looks so forlorn when he said goodbye, just hurt. And Claire obviously feels a loss. And Jamie obviously doesn't like that. you know.
Well, I think he knows at some level he hasn't come to grips with it, but I think he
Yeah.
knows that he's responsible for that, and that he probably behaved inappropriately. I think he overreacted.
But I don't think I didn't get the feeling that he was thinking about that. I thought he was thinking just like I don't like any of this, and I don't like you calling her that, and I don't even like you being here. That's what I took. I did you think there were more layers there?
uh, I do at some level that I think
Okay.
he's going to be delving into in the future, but I don't think he's ready to do that yet. But yes, I think his conscience is telling him that he knows something in that situation is not quite right, and that he might be responsible for a large part of it, especially his face. Do you remember when she said, "Thank you for saving my life"?
Yeah.
He acted like he didn't realize that. And I don't
What?
remember Claire ever telling him that Lord John married her to save her from Richardson
Yeah.
being
Yeah.
exposed as a spy.
And I also felt like Claire, because Claire used to resent Lord John because of his attraction to Jamie, but she knows better who he is now and realizes, like, literally, he's the next best guy to Jamie.
In the
Um,
series, he is.
yeah.
Pretty much he
I
is.
mean, young Ian's up there for me.
Yeah.
Carmen, what worked for you?
Um, a lot of things in this episode worked for me. I will say that. Um, I really liked the opening scene of Faith and Jane and uh, Francis looking for the dragonflies. And I was especially happy to see that they actually showed a dragonfly. That was a real dragonfly. One of the things that got me in season one was that piece of amber that Hugh Monroe gave them had a damselfly in it. It was not a dragonfly. And the whole episode was named after Dragonfly and Amber, but it wasn't a dragonfly. And it really bugged me.
I
So,
remember that. And there was also a bee. They had like a bumblebee instead of a honeybee or something. Do you remember
oh,
that?
yeah, that was in when they were up on the ridge, when they first found the ridge and were looking at it. There were flowers, that weren't um, strawberries. They were some other kind of flower. And there were bumblebees that instead of honeybees, but
That's before we, really they started watching us and saying, "Dang it, we better." Yeah. I just want to say the acting, the casting, the ensemble for this episode and this 7B is so strong. Like all of the actors are are like really good heavy hitters. And I just have really enjoyed that. It's just a pleasure. Oh, Antoinette.
She coming on?
Yeah, I
Oh,
think.
wonderful.
Yay, I'm so glad you made it. Catherine said,
Yep.
I'm about to get on. I fell asleep. I woke up. I'm about to get on. And then she said, my stomach hurts. I'm not coming.
Oh,
So maybe our stomach will stop hurting.
okay.
So yeah, so I was saying the acting and the kids, like Jane, Sylvia, uh, every single person. Yeah, almost every single person. Okay, you go ahead.
I thought the scene between Brian and Bree, that really touched me. And not Bree's acting, I'm sorry to say, but Brian's acting. His name is, let's see, Andrew Whip. Is that his name?
Yeah.
His acting in that, as he talked about his wife that is gone, and his expression of grief, and how he tries to keep his heart open, which clearly he did because he taught it to his son, um, was just really extraordinarily well done. Gentle, thoughtful, um, emotionally mature. Just all of the things, the sort of things that honorable, the things that you attribute to Jamie, his dad had. He was wearing the Laird's jacket. I don't know if you noticed or not, but he had on that leather jacket. Bree's acting in it was a disappointment. I her her American accent was just so out of place. I'm wondering why he didn't just go, what are you talking about, girl? You know, and she was using language that was very 20th century, not, you know, not 18th century. Um, but I thought his presentation in that was just really spot on and really enjoyable.
My overall impression of the episode, I liked it a lot. I am not as enamored of this episode as I was of the previous episode. I enjoyed it. I thought it was great TV, but it left me feeling a little meh. So I'd probably give it 3.9 out of 5.
Wow.
Oh, that
Yeah.
harsh.
I don't want to be a contrarian, but I came away feeling, yeah.
You gotta do what you gotta do.
Yep.
Okay, what's your favorite scene?
The reason I struggled in terms of an overall rating is that there are so many scenes that I really loved. My first one would be that opening scene with Jane and the journalist.
Oh,
I thought that she gave such a phenomenal performance. She was riveting. I believed her. I was rooting for her. And I understood that bottled up rage coupled with despair. It was just, it was just a work of art, her performance in that scene. Albeit the journalist's wonky wig was a bit distracting. Because I don't know, it's like the makeup people stayed from a far distance and just threw that wig on his head. So, so while I was there enamored of the actress's delivery of her. Every time they switched the camera to him, I said, "Bitch, what's going on with that hair?"
I have some things I want to say about the reporter a little later.
okay.
But I thought I thought her acting also, Antoinette, was just off the charts. It was, you know, she knew exactly what her fate was, and she kept it all together. And that is really something to be able to do that when you know that you're going to be hanged.
Yeah. Or maybe she knew she was going to kill herself at that point.
Maybe.
But
Don't know.
I noticed she made me think of Jamie in that scene because she's had such a hard life. And here she was having her moment to be like, F you. And then he brings up Fanny and she's like, yeah, I can't do it. Yeah. And so she's on the, literally in the night before her death or of her death. And she's like, I still got to take care of my sister. Yeah. Come on over here and let me give you a version that she can read. It just, it made me think of Jamie and all his situations that he was in with the British when they just took his power over and over again. That's what I thought of in that scene. Really well done.
I like the scene with, I love every scene with Jamie and Claire, especially when they're being true to their characters. So I love the scene where he brought her the pot for her to piss in. I thought, yeah, that is a level of intimacy and connection that is so genuine and not, romanticized. And, because, we see all the romantic bits and all that stuff. And in the books, Diana gets down and dirty. She gets to the nitty-gritty with Jamie and Claire. And sometimes they sanitize the relationship too much in the show. And so that scene really tickled me. And again, they were true to their characters. I love that scene. And anyway, so I love that scene. That was just, yeah, that was a boss scene. And the way he went and got the candle so she couldn't look at it because he knew that he was going to worry
all night,
the whole night. You see that another thing was good use of the source material, because that whole exchange was in the book. When they use the source material in a creative way, they can't miss.
That was Carmen's top favorite too.
Yeah.
Great minds, great minds.
And I wanted to just say that was one of the things when I first started reading the books that both surprised me and kind of, I don't know, there's a comfort that Diana goes into menstruation and urination and just like things that we all go through and do and just normalize it. You don't see that in books and
or on TV, unless it's some kind of dystopian stylized craziness that they love to do in TV shows nowadays. Nothing, everything is some kind of fantasy. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but I mean, she talked about this stuff. Jamie and Claire talked about this stuff more than my parents were comfortable talking about this stuff. And it was kind of like, yeah, this is how it should be. This is how it could be. These are normal human things.
I have to say that it's possible that my parents had those kinds of talks, but they sure didn't let us kids know it.
Yeah.
They didn't ever say anything like that in front of us. So I wouldn't have, there was no modeling for it. If you found that in your own marriage, you found it on your own because, or at least in my case, because it wasn't modeled for me.
I like the scene where Jamie and William finally got to have that conversation. I thought they were a little bit shortchanged. I thought they could have prolonged it a little better and let us see the emotions develop more. But I thought just as we were seeing a connection and a chemistry, I thought the scene was a bit truncated. But for what we got in terms of that conversation and, Jamie just telling it like it is, I know what you really want to ask. And, no honorable man is going to give you those details. And then he, explained, and he, I mean, and again, that was a conversation that was taken from the books. And even though I thought we could have gotten a little bit more, that was one of my favorite scenes. One of Jamie's superhero trait is that he's a father. Is that is his thing. Where Claire is a physician and doctor and that is sort of thing, Jamie is a father. And it is so incongruous that he's a father who never got to raise any of his own children, but has fathered so many other children. And so I like that scene because I saw that, that was the beginning of probably a reconciliation and an understanding that William will eventually come to of who Jamie Fraser is.
Was on my list too. It's just Jamie shows up. I've said that before. Jamie shows up. That people are like, what is it so big about Jamie? He shows up.
Yeah.
He meets people where they are,
Mm-hmm.
and he shows up.
Yeah. And he's matter of fact about it. It's not,
But loving,
here comes the hero on the white horse. No.
Yeah.
That's his character. That's him. He doesn't have to think about it. William comes to him for help and he's like, what do you need? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Fergus, Marcelly, Joni, Claire, Bree. Do you know what I mean? He shows up. You're right. He shows up.
Yeah.
And he's prepared to go there.
He's emotionally available. He's emotionally mature, as Carmen said, and he meets people where they are, and he doesn't shy away from the hard feelings or the hard information, whether he's getting it or giving it. I mean, he didn't do so great with the Lord John Gray stuff, but that was trauma.
Himself, but
Trauma's a different category.
Yeah.
Okay, so you want to say something that worked for you, Antoinette?
I've already alluded to it. I thought in a lot of the scenes, the use of the source material was excellent. And it's something that I'm very grateful for because I think it enhances the show tremendously because the characters are true to themselves when they're speaking Diana's words, and you see them for who they really are. So the use of the source material really worked for me, and also the use of lighting. When what's her name, Jane, is sitting there talking to the journalist, and that light is coming through that single window in that structure where she was, and it was on her face, I said, wow. And also the lighting when Rollo, yes, when that scene with Ian and Rollo, it was just, there was just something about it that just enhanced I don't know, I thought it was just brilliant.
I think this director uses a lot of artistry. I mean, he's got quite an eye for framing, for lighting, for the cinematography. I get the feeling that he gets really inspired by the location, by the light, and by the actors themselves, and then creates like on the spot. That's what it feels like.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, if that is not his process, well, whatever his process it damn works. He's one of those directors that I like to say have an inner eye, because some of, you see, what I find with a lot of TV shows, and I don't watch a lot of TV, the directors are so heavy-handed, and you can see them manipulating the story,
Yeah.
And that just irks me. That's why I don't watch a lot of TV, because I'm saying, get out of the way. We don't need to see your opinion, and and so himself and Wolfenden have that same, what I call an inner act, where they are able to tell the story without imposing themselves on the story, without being heavy-handed, you know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
his direction, really has worked in the episodes that he has directed. I hope he came back for season 8.
Me too. I hope he did the whole season.
That'd be great. They brought back Wolfenden.
Oh, that'd be great too.
I liked Jamie's oath to Frances when he tells her that no man will ever take her as long as he lives. He gives her that oath. And he means it. And it's right out of the book. It's in chapter 24 of Moby. And I just thought, you know, she has not expressed her fear of it in this episode, but in the book she does. She worries about this, and when is she going to be put in a brothel, and that sort of thing. So for those who are not book readers, it may seem a little anticlimactic or not catch their eye or whatever, but for book readers, they know that this little girl grew up traumatized in that kind of a setting and saw for herself the very things that were done to women, who were, most of them had no recourse as to, a way to survive and have a roof over their heads. So I really like that oath that he made to her, and I think he will keep it. I have no doubt that he will keep it.
Yeah. That was one of my favorite scenes between those two. Both of them are dynamite, and they were dynamite together. And I did wonder, because I think she was about 12, having somebody, a grown man, say, "No man will ever take you." I know my kid would be like, "What?"
Yeah, but she didn't grow up in a brothel.
Well, right, but neither did the actress. So I mean, just like,
Well.
So I did think about that's kind of be interesting to sort of explain that. But that was one thing about Florrie. She did that really worked for me is her side eye. She really used her, her looking, it just made you believe like she's sad, but she also looks a little bit like a trapped animal that doesn't know if it's in a safe place. And I thought she did that so effectively. That really worked for me.
Yeah, the casting of her and the actress who played Jane Pocock was brilliant. Both of them have excelled and have been absolute standouts. So yeah, I love every scene that she was in.
Yep. I really liked the fact that in that little scene when William and Jamie come back, well, Jamie comes back, and he's telling Claire, like, the girl we went to save slit her wrists and she has a sister. I liked that they didn't have him explain everything. And the next scene, when it's, later in the morning and there's like a little pan, there's a transition, that they've discussed, should we take this child? And, they've gone through all that, and they didn't have to spell it all out for us. That was my take. I didn't think Jamie just, said, "Well, we're going to take you." I felt like they talked about that, and I liked that they did it that way.
Okay.
I think Claire, Jamie, and Frances's approach to the Potter's Field unmarked graves. It's basically a Potter's Field because that's where they put people who were poor or unclaimed or unidentified. And in this case, they wouldn't let her be buried in the book in a church ground, on church ground, because she committed suicide and murder.
And was a whore.
And so family, they found, let her be buried in their private graveyard. In this instance, they didn't do that. They used a potter's field, which probably was more realistic, honestly. And I think probably a lot of the people who were buried there, it wasn't just from the Battle of Monmouth, because some of the graves had grass growing over them, others were fresh. So I assume those were people probably killed in the battle. And they put her in an unmarked grave. So there was no way that, that Frances could have identified which grave was hers. And I just thought that was extraordinarily well done. The panic that little girl probably felt inside of her, wanting to, kneel, lay, be adjacent to her sister, the only living person that she knows of in her family, must have been really compelling for her. And that made me cry. That was one of the scenes that I cried in, was just thinking about the pain and anguish and, the panic. What is she going to do? She knows she can't take care of herself by herself. And I thought that was a brilliant resolution to this for the writers and the director, to have her being buried in this setting where she is not, she can't be recognized. And I thought that was quite true to probably what would have happened in those days.
And I thought Florrie Mae running through that, calling her and saying, "Where is she?" And I'm assuming that's what made you cry. That made me cry.
Yes.
And it was also visually beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, that scene was one of the ones that I agree with Carmen. You could see all the emotions, the panic, the desperation, because even though William has said that you're under my protection and I take care of it, she can't really believe that.
Well, especially, look what happened.
Exactly so.
Yeah.
And so, she was able to get all of those, run that gamut of emotions in that scene. Brilliant. And I also love the fact that Jamie gave her that lock of hair. That made me well up a little bit. That lock of hair. There are just so many little touches, so many things in this episode that were just so brilliant.
Well, why'd you give it a 3.9? You think about that.
Put a pin in that. I'll come back to it.
Yes, let's put a pin on it. So I wanted to say that the little no dialogue scene with William and Frances when they arrive at the church, and they're getting off the horse. We don't see them get off, but they're, turn around, walk up to the church. There's no dialogue in that scene, and it's such a beautifully done. They do everything with their expressions and their body language, and that scene really worked for me. I was saying earlier, the ensemble in this 7B is so strong.
Yeah.
And I'll just
there's a weak link at all in 7B. Well, anything.
I say one thing that's kind of a segue from that is that it really worked for me that there was not a sex scene between Roger and Bree, which I thought was about to happen when they went to them. I was like, no. I mean,
please no.
Exactly.
Thank God for small mercies.
I would like to grab my beer.
Are you taking a break now?
Well, I'm not taking a break. My beer is sitting outside in the 20-degree weather, and I'm going to grab it, and I'll be right back.
She'll be lucky if it's not frozen.
Exactly. and
See how
clouds
fast that
and
was?
stuff.
Is it freezing now?
It's a frosty mug. Oh, it is a little bit.
It is.
Hmm.
Good luck.
So let's do least favorite scenes.
All right. I'm probably going to horrify people by what I'm going to say next.
Probably.
It is actually not a scene, it's a sequence.
Okay.
It's a story arc. But I do not like the implied faith story that seems to be unfolding. We will see where it goes. I'm not one of those who's going to put my foot in and say, well, this is what's happening. But there's a lot of hints of where this is going, with that Faith did live and that she was the mother of Jane and Francis. The problem with that for me is that that means that Jane had sex with her half uncle. And that is not that's an icky thought. I'm sorry, but I can't say it any nicer than that. And I don't think they should go there with this story arc, because they have to deal with that if they do it, in my opinion.
Interesting. But okay, so well, let's just talk about this right now then. Yeah, and I don't know if you saw William did an interview, or I mean Charles did an interview where he said, like,
I didn't see it.
he basically said that, like, well, so, I'm hoping that Faith is not the mother, whatever, that's not Claire's kid and Jamie's kid, because then William would have sex with his half niece, and I don't know about William, but I think that's gross. And he just
I did not hear him say that, but I came up with that on my own. But yeah, I feel the same way. I just think it's not even though neither one of them would have been aware of it, that's not it. It leaves the viewer, the consumer, with a really that's icky for me.
Yeah, interesting. I wonder, what's that? Was that just to create, like, well, Diana does hint at this in the books, that
But
Faith
they discuss
could
it,
be their
but
mother.
then they go through it, and it's discounted.
Yeah, Jamie discounts it. Jamie does it in the book. He said no. He says no, she couldn't have. I mean, they went to her grave. I don't know if they saw her face buried or not, but
So what's Master Raymond coming and saying,
he didn't say he had faith.
please forgive me?
Well, we don't know what that is.
Well, I do wonder
What is he asking for forgiveness for?
How can they know about this song that Claire's singing to a dead baby?
Yeah, but exactly. How the hell? No, but the problem is that is not, it's Claire didn't invent that song. That was a song that people sang around that time, sang to children. She didn't make that song.
No, of course, but
no, but it wasn't written until the early 1900s. So
yes, it wasn't.
But either way, it doesn't explain it, because she sang it to a dead baby. That was it wasn't even full term. You think it could have, even if Raymond had revived
I think what
it,
people are speculating is that Master Raymond was lurking and
that's what my thinking was. The only explanation was that he heard it,
and how did he teach it to Francis then?
Well, he would have taught
he
would have had to teach it to Faith, who taught it to her daughters.
Exactly.
Okay.
I agree with you.
So
that whole story arc just made me mad.
It's unsupportable, in my opinion. And there's a recent Parade magazine interview with Diana where she says that they got the idea from her because she told Matt that had she made a second graphic novel, she would have explained how Master Raymond saved and revived Faith and saved her, but was unable to return her to her parents before they left for Scotland.
So she's saying that happened?
She
Or
did not. She said if she had written a second graphic novel, that's what she would have put in it.
well, you know, she's doing a novella about Master Raymond.
Yes, I do know that. I do know that.
So yeah, I mean, this is all very, and then you know, Donner talks about Raymond was the guy who taught them all this stuff. So I was like, did Master Raymond take Faith back to the 70s or the 60s or whatever those guys were from, and somehow she learned the song then, and then
She would have had to been a time traveler too then.
well, she was Jamie and Claire's child, so
It's
maybe
possible.
Brianna's a time traveler.
Yes, I'm not saying that
Yeah.
it's
So
not possible.
right.
I'm just saying she would have had to also be a time traveler for that. But you know, it's also there's the issue of how did Master Raymond know where she was, where she and Jamie were? You know, I mean, he would have
Yeah.
had to do a lot of sleuthing. Is it impossible? I'm sure Diana could figure out a solution to it if anybody could. But you know, it's just like it feels contrived, a bit contrived to me. The whole arc does. So I'm not real crazy about it. And I'll shut up about it now.
No, it's one of the things I wanted to talk about. So it's fine that you brought it up, and
Oh, okay.
to find out like what are the questions, what are the theories. I mean, I never dig around on that stuff because I want to just discover Outlander as it comes at me. But I did look at somebody's family tree today where they're asserting some pretty crazy stuff that would explain, not even wouldn't explain this, but explain some other things in the books potentially. Um, yeah, so you think they're gonna like come back and be like, no, not really. I don't know.
I hope so.
So does Charles.
Yeah, I
Because
agree with Charles. I
because
agree with
I
Charles.
have a feeling, you know, this is a spoiler, but I have a feeling that Charles and Fanny are going to end up together.
Well, I
I mean,
thought so
not
too.
Charles, William.
William. Actually, I've told another group that
Yeah.
several months ago, before
Yeah.
we even got to this part of season 7, that I thought that they were going to end up together. But then, if she's Claire and
So he's
Jamie's
going to be banging
granddaughter,
another half niece. Like,
oh,
yeah, I have a feeling that's what's going to happen.
consanguinity is not.
I just that whole story just pissed me off to no
Yeah,
end.
I
Just
don't
so
like it.
contrived and ridiculous and implausible. It reminded me of the Either story arc. I mean, there's so many other things that they could have developed. I know they
Eagle.
wanted an exciting cliffhanger, but come
Eagle?
on.
What are you talking about, Eagle?
Hmm?
Eagle?
Either.
Ether.
Either.
I thought you said eagles too.
No,
I
no.
was like,
Either.
yeah, Ether.
That
No,
whole
it's
storyline
same.
with
Yeah.
Claire and the Either and
Yeah.
how they
Yeah,
handled
yeah.
it. That was just so stupid and
Yeah.
ridiculous.
I agree.
And this pissed me off to no end.
Yeah.
Not just because it's icky, but how the hell did Master Raymond turn up in wherever they were, North Carolina, where New York, wherever? I mean, come on now. Yes, we know he's a time traveler and he's this and he's that and blah blah blah. And yes,
Well,
we have to suspend our disbelief, but don't insult us.
Well,
I-
and he's going to ride horses and do all the things, and then just to walk in through the curtain and say,
I'm
I
just
am here to ask your forgiveness, and then
and Jamie didn't realize it. He
Yeah.
didn't wake up.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
I'm not. I'm just
I did see an interesting theory today that what Master Raymond meant by that is that he is that when what he said to Claire is that he is trying to urge her to move forward with her power so that she will come into full power. And so he planted this story about Faith cause her to believe more in herself and come to her full power. But again, that is so contrived.
Really?
I don't know how they're going to unwind from this.
I don't either.
I have a feeling it's going to be a left turn. You know what I mean? Like where
Yeah.
where
We're
you
gonna do
go.
something.
"Ah."
We're gonna. I hope we don't return to some of the nonsense of seasons 3 and 4, because
The made up
really,
stuff.
it just seemed. What it seemed to me is that they wanted an exciting cliffhanger.
Yeah.
There are just so many other ways they could have gone.
Yeah.
So many other things for them to. Jesus, that is one of the reasons why I did not
Gave her.
rate this episode as highly as I rated the other episode.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was
That
that
just
whole
pissed me
storyline?
off to no end.
Yeah,
I was
yeah, I
mad.
could see. Good for you.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
I
let's
mean,
move
that's just
on.
one. There was
Okay.
another big
Okay. Well, my least favorite scene, Carmen, sorry, was between Bree and Brian. I thought that was the most awkward scene. As a matter of fact, I was like, oh, they must not have been able to coordinate their schedules. They actually shot this at different times. That's how awkward it was, is it felt like, because it was a lot of close-ups. And then when I looked it back, I said, oh wait, they do show them together. They didn't seem like they were in the same scene to me
Well,
at all.
that's not, I remember who I complimented in that, right?
Yes, and I will also say that I think you are spot on with your assessment, or your, what you've taken from watching Sophie over these seasons. She did so great in all the action stuff and the, high emotion scenes. And then this one, oh, it was just like,
It
and
was painful.
I'm rooting for her. So it was painful. It was like, and then with the flowers. I mean, it just,
What
there's
does that mean?
She still struggles with these kinds of scenes. The scenes where she has to emote and,
but these seem
she has
like
developed.
emotionless. This scene seemed so flat from her
It-
that,
from
And
her
her, her language was just so 1980s, and an accent that was nothing like Brian would have heard. And he doesn't say anything about it, or
exactly. And he's just talking to her, and she's like, well, I'm a daughter, and everybody's got a daughter or a son. And
everybody's got a
like,
father.
and then he's like, yeah, I would miss my wife. Yeah, he's doing a really great job in the scene. And then she's just, I don't know. That was awkward. And I was
Yeah.
trying to see, like, okay, how did Joss shoot this?
Mhm.
And honestly, I feel like he shot it like they weren't in the same scene, because it didn't feel like they were in the same
Maybe they weren't,
Yeah,
I mean, they were there together. They showed
but
them
they
there,
weren't
but
together.
maybe
They were
they
not at the same
CGI'd them.
level.
Yeah, no.
They were there together, but they were not at the same level.
Yeah, so that was my least favorite scene.
She wasn't in her character at all. And it felt as if she was just going through the motions and phoning in a performance.
She
And
kind of
he was,
reminded me of Lottie Doll.
when he was
He's
fully
pouring out
invested.
his heart
It
to
was
her.
like he was doing an audition, and she was his scene partner,
Yeah.
just reading the lines back to him. That's what it
Yeah.
felt like.
I agree.
Anyway,
That was
not to be rude, but I just,
yeah. No.
okay, your least favorite, Antoinette?
Scene or
Yes.
that was one of them. Okay. My least favorite scenette, vignette, whatever, is when not Floyd, Francis comes and William comes in with her, right? In the book, it is Jamie who embraces her and takes her in his arms. But in this episode, in the scene, she goes to Claire, and it is Claire who takes that on. And it pissed me off to no end because they continually, it rears its ugly head again, where they continually take things from the Jamie character and put them onto the Claire character.
That's true.
You know,
we've seen it many times.
Jamie is the father, and the relationship with him and Francis in the books is just wonderful.
Yeah.
I don't know why they would think it necessary that himself and Francis couldn't have the same chemistry. Look how he was with young William in season 3. Look at how he was with young Joni. They would have been able to carry that scene if they had gone that way. And so the whole, it's Claire who embraces her, and Jamie's just relegated to standing there looking, I mean, that was my least favorite scene because I started to get mad in that scene, and then I got incandescent when they went with the fate thing.
Don't you think they just needed to give her something to do?
Who?
Claire?
No, but she's doing a whole lot. She's dying. She has come back to life. She's pissing and she's doing all kind of stuff. They don't need, she is established. She's a superhero doctor. Yeah. Jamie's superpower is that he's a father to everybody. Let Jamie have this. Yeah. Let his character be fleshed out properly. I was looking forward to seeing the beginning of that relationship with Jamie and Francis, because that is one of my favorite relationships in the books. And I just felt robbed. And I said, what kind of bullshit is this? It just made me, it just soured me, turned me off the episode. And there was some great stuff in this episode. Yeah. But when they went left with that and went even further left with the faith thing.
Carmi, what didn't work for you?
Well, I have to say that the reporter didn't work for me. I really love the portrayal that Jane did of a woman as traumatized and damaged as she is. Mm-hmm. I thought she was just spot on. So I agree with you, Antoinette, about that. But the reporter, it seemed like his questions were just a little too modern, I gotta, report to my readers and, yeah. Don't you want me to, that's the sort of thing that we're used to now, but it just seemed like, I'm not so sure that would have happened then. I thought that discussion went on a little bit too long, but what I really got me was when he said, is that what whoring has done to you? And yeah. I'm like, you make it seem as though she chose this as her life profession, and so she had a choice in it. And that sort of blaming of women for the situation that they find themselves in order to survive is really tiresome for me. It gets my dander up like nothing else does. I really get infuriated by it. So his attitude about her, well, you're the one that is a whore, and look what it's, because you chose this profession, blaming it on her, and instead
which would happen.
Oh yeah. Still does happen.
Still happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was something that didn't work for me.
He was an asshole.
Yeah, he
was.
With
a bad wig.
Thank you.
Okay.
It was a wanker in a wonky wig.
Exactly. He kind of reminded me of the guy who was God's teeth or God's tooth or whatever
Oh, you mean in season 3 in A Malcolm?
in the print
But
shop.
he was great. I loved him.
Oh,
Yeah, he
yes.
was. He was
He was
sick.
a well-needed bit of comic relief for
Yeah.
that heavy episode. I loved him.
So what didn't work for me was okay, when Ian came riding up on his horse and Jamie comes out and he's sees him and is like, immediately like, oh, he's breathing because so heavy with Claire, and then he sees Ian, so he knows he's going to hear about William. John Bell's downward transition on that horse was just terrible. I was like, come on, could you not have filmed a different, but I just don't know if people are attuned to that. So on horses you have upward transitions where you go from walk to trot is upward, trot to canter is upward, downward would be canter to trot, trot to
Mhm.
walk. And you try to make those smooth if you're an experienced rider because it's it's easier on the horse and it's easier on the rider. And he came in at a canter. I mean, that horse looks pretty, heavy footed, but and he just went like clunk, 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 like it was just, how the medical stuff is offensive to you. I was like, oh, like how could they have kept that? I mean, it was really bad. So
I noticed that too, and I'm
did
not a
you?
horse person. Yeah, that he was kind of flopping around on the horse.
Well, it's because he went from a canter to like a one step of trot and then a walk, but in the horse, you know, it's the same as you would do in a car. You don't go like or like you you try to do it smoothly. And
Mhm.
I just don't think maybe John Bell has that nuance of writing, and I just was surprised they kept that in there. I found it offensive.
The reunion with Roger and Bree and the kids. There was just something about that just felt, I don't know, I was annoyed by it for some reason because there was no connection there. It was very perfunctory. You know, I didn't, I wasn't feeling it. I thought I would have felt that emotion. I mean, they've gone through so much and all the trauma of the separation. And it was just like, oh, daddy had gone off to work and oh, I'm so glad to see daddy. There was nothing there. And I wanted something to be there, you
I
know?
thought I thought Richard did a good job with that,
But
but
I don't think that, well, I suppose maybe I was expecting too much of the younger actors. I mean, Jemmy, well, the little girl, you can't really say anything about the little girl.
yeah,
But
she's
he has
little.
been better in other scenes, So when he runs up and there was just something missing there for me. So that didn't work. And I have not felt that the transitions between times was jarring in a lot of these episodes that we have looked at for 7B. But in this episode, somehow the transitions got back to being jarring,
Mm.
in terms of the transition into time periods, went back to that disconnect that I don't like because it takes me out of the story,
Yeah.
So the transitions between times didn't work for me in this episode.
I have to agree. I thought that was not how I envisioned the reunion to occur. And there all of a sudden there's Bree marching out of the mist with her daughter in her arms. And I don't know, it just I didn't feel what I thought I would, the elation that I was expecting to feel. Now,
once again, Buck did a great job on his part, you know, his looking, watching them, you know, and you had to imagine that in his heart how sad he was because he wasn't with his own family and probably never would be again. But he put on the brave face and, you know, and was acting the part of the father, Antoinette. He went up and embraced everybody and everything. I thought he did a good job, but I don't know. There was just, and the little girl that plays Mandy, bless her heart, she's no better than she was in the first episode that she appeared. She is not an actress yet. It might happen, but you know, it's just not convincing that Daddy.
Some children have a spark and some children don't. You can't, that is not something that can be learned, or, you know, either you have it or you don't, because they're children, they won't have mastered, you know, how to learn a lot of dialogue and deliver it and get into a scene and get into character. But if they have that spark, you know, I know that the actress that Layla and Flory would have had that spark when they were younger.
Yes.
And they would have been able to inhabit their character because it's an instinct. It's an instinct. And I know that they would have had that instinct based on how they have been able to inhabit the characters.
Yeah, I would say that's one casting in this season that wasn't well cast.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I felt like the way it was set up, it almost looked like they were posing for a group photo.
Like everybody was just going through the motions like a school photo.
Well, I mean, yeah, they're just like, oh, Buck. I don't know. Yeah, it was lacking. I thought Richard did a good job, you know, when he saw Jem, of going through like elation, relief, and then like, where have you been? Like, that's very parental. Yeah, but I get that.
I counted it. There were 22 scene changes in 55 minutes.
Wow.
And that's very popular to do that now for some reason. I don't know where it came from or when it started, but I kind of wish they would allow some of the arcs to continue a little bit longer instead of this little tidbit, and then you hop over here, and then you hop over here, and then you hop over here. You know, it breaks up the story to me, and the emotion that you're building on. It's a technique that has come in, seems to me, that has come into its own in the last few years, and I'm not a particular fan of it. I would really rather that they actually, it's one of the reasons that I like British television, is that they actually carry through with the story line for quite a while before they go to a new scene, and we're not doing that so much in our productions these days, it seems like, over here. Now I realize it's produced, I mean that it's being filmed in Scotland, but it's, you know,
it's an American
production.
Yeah. But do you think that's a little bit of a function of the story, the complexity of the story?
No.
I mean, because I didn't think that it did as, like, I'll just say I thought the worst episode of season 7B was Luke's, whichever number that was.
Yeah, I agree.
And that was so choppy, and I didn't feel while I was watching like, wow, this is so choppy. I did feel like they covered a lot, but I feel like they sort of had to cover a lot because of how complex the books are.
Well,
no, but last episode was not like that.
No, the transitions were very smooth in that one, and
it's a function of the writing.
Yeah,
it's a function of the writing. I agree with Carmen. Nothing had a chance to really develop,
to breathe.
It was snippets and gone. Snippet and gone. I mean, yes, that is how you tell a story. In TV media, it's scenes. You know, it's not like it seems. You know, it's not like a book where everything can be completely fleshed out. We understand that, but we get it. But with a writer who is able to pull all the threads together and make it seem seamless, and where the characters get a chance to inhabit the character, to develop the emotions, like how we had in the previous episode, the one that was written by Danielle Beru, however you pronounce her name. That was a masterclass in writing. This one, it seemed to me the concentration was on, we're falling back into, we have to get this in, we have to get that in, we have to get this in, we have to make sure we get this in. Don't try to get everything in. Choose a few things that are pivotal and let the things breathe. You can't just be cramming everything in, because then you are in the situation where you don't feel, you're left feeling unsatisfied.
Mhm.
You know,
But
because
I thought
just as the emotions were welling up, oh, it's time to cram something else in.
I thought they straddled the fence on that. I didn't think they were the worst they could have been, and they also weren't maybe the best.
That's what I'm saying. There were some scenes that they did allow to breathe.
Yeah.
But as the episode went on, you know, like the opening episode, right? With Jane and the thing,
The opening scene.
the opening scene, and then the scene with Claire and Jamie where she's saying, where she's talking about, you know, I know how I felt when I thought you were dead and I wouldn't do that to you. And, you know, they allowed that to breathe.
Yes.
But then it's as if they said, it felt as if they said, oh, we're running out of time. So let's just get this in and get this in and get this in.
They
and
sped up
I
as they
mean,
went. Yeah.
you know, I wanted a little bit more, for instance, of Jamie, Ian and Rollo. Couldn't they have
Yeah.
just left that out? Just carry that forward to 8 and let's
Yeah.
see that? Because I mean, I just felt shortchanged with some of the things that I was looking forward to. You know, they didn't devote enough time to some of the things that, well, I mean, it's just for me. I was looking forward to certain things, and they touched on it, but didn't develop it.
Did you guys notice, and this isn't what you noticed, this didn't work for me, when Jamie opened the door, when it was William at the door, I know it was supposed to be like, you look up and it's William, but you know, here he is. It's in a church that was just in a war zone. There's enemies potentially around. His wife's in there. And he opens the door like with his head down and then looks up. Oh, I mean, I just was like, Jamie would never, first of all, he'd be like, who the hell's that at this hour? And then he would get his dirk
Probably have his gun.
or his gun and he'd throw the door open or, you know, something, look out the window. And so that just didn't work for me the way.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And then I just didn't think Claire peed for long enough for somebody who really had to pee.
No, it wasn't very long. No, and you know, she got right back and sat on the bed
Without any wiping going on.
Yes, that's right.
Well, you know, I don't think they had any TP back then, but they were drip dry was their thing. Did you guys have any others that didn't work?
No.
Okay, well, let's go on to things I noticed.
William and Geneva look a lot alike.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they look like they could be mother and son, honestly. His face shape, color of his hair. I didn't realize it until they showed her image from season 3.
Mm-hmm.
And then when it was right there next to William, I thought, oh my God, they look a lot alike.
Mm-hmm.
So that was one thing I noticed. The other thing I noticed is what is going on with the hair color in this with them. I don't understand it. Jane's hair changed from dark brown in this half of the season to red brown to that curl is red. In fact, it's almost golden red. Had gold highlights in it, blonde highlights in it. Black Brian now has reddish brown hair when he's supposed to be Black Brian, and now Ellen's portrait has dark brown hair and she's supposed to be a redhead. I don't know what they're doing. But it's like very confusing. And he says, Brian tells her, you remind me of my wife, and I feel like I've just come across her just now. She didn't look anything like that portrait that I could tell.
Exactly. I noticed Charles's chapped lips in the Jane rescue scene since Catherine brought them up last time. Did you notice that at first when they would show the British camp, I was like, is that sand? Are they set up on sand? But it was actually ice covering the ground that they were set up on in the British camp. And it looked absolutely freezing.
Well, the funny part about it is that the Battle of Monmouth was fought in June, and some of the days were 100 degrees. They were said to be 100 degrees when that battle was fought. Yeah. And so this is pretty funny to see them breathing.
Yeah, I saw that Sylvia, who played Jane, said something like, shout out to the icy ground that almost, like, I don't know, took her out when she was doing her angry walk in the episode where they were all there. So I guess it was like that the entire time. I noticed that Charles is very beautiful.
You did, so you're a fan now.
I've been a fan, but I've just had this, he's so young, and I have a son almost his same age, and I had William really looks like Geneva. It looks like Geneva with a Fraser nose. He also has a Fraser nose.
Yes.
And I noticed that Jemmy and Francis look alike. They have some similar features and coloring.
That opening montage where the two girls are running and supposedly to their mother. Why does their mother have long curly brown hair? Do you remember the little baby Faith with the little wisps of red hair? Where's she coming from with this curly brown hair? If this is really Faith.
Well, baby's hair does change. It's not uncommon.
I was about to say maybe her hair changed, but
they all had Claire hair.
Yeah.
Yeah, even the portrait in the locket had curly hair.
Curly hair. Okay.
Well, even Ellen had Claire hair, and she's not Claire. She's not from Claire's side of the family.
Oh God.
I mean, while we're on that, let me just show you this, because I was like, how's this continuity going to be working out? So we have, where is this? This is Ellen in the Blood of My Blood.
Yes.
So I'm going to let it come back to me and just stay there for a second.
Yeah.
Okay. And then this is Ellen in Outlander.
Look at that hair. And it's like, what? And that's a self-portrait, if you remember.
How are they going to marry these two things together?
Well, it's two different shows.
They are making the same face. I will say that, but I don't know. I don't know. Maybe they're going to say, oh, that wasn't Ellen. That was, I don't know.
They were saying it's the lighting and the darkness in the hallway that was responsible for it.
Yeah.
Esmeralda made it through the stones.
Yeah.
I thought when Ian returned that he gave Rollo a warmer welcome than his wife.
Yeah, I wondered if he had like some honey on his face or something, it was supposed to be like, because he just went like this. And then Rollo started listening.
And then Claire's color is blue, so is Master Raymond, if you remember right. And the bird from episode 207, Faith, and her cloak at the window was also blue as she was opening the shutters at the church just before they left. And so those were a couple of little Easter eggs that I noticed about of course, everybody saw that, but I think the color blue was put to interesting use in this episode, right? Well, did you see Claire's gorgeous coat in the Potter's Field, that burgundy long coat she was wearing? Oh my goodness, it was lovely.
How are they having all these clothes at the
Maybe
Valley
they had them
Monmouth?
already.
Well, I mean, she was living in Lord John's house in the city, so
I guess maybe they
have
sent
had
them out
made
there.
for-
Yeah.
Good point. I thought that was a really odd jacket they had Jimmy wearing. That sort of glossy looking black thing. I thought, why does that even look like the 18th century? It was really an odd thing to put on him. And then the last one is, I was curious about what the book was that Denzel was holding.
The Bible, I think.
It showed it twice, and I wondered what it was. And maybe it was the Bible. I don't know. But it showed it twice. He had it open both times. So
I think
they
it was
didn't
a
let us
Bible.
see. I thought that was my first thought
Yeah.
too.
Carmi, as you mentioned, the coat that Jemmy had on, I was looking at the clothes that Brianna had on. Did she have on a corduroy jacket? The hell? Those clothes didn't, I mean, the top part, the long skirt was fine, but the top part, the inner blouse and that jacket didn't look anything appropriate for the time period that she was in.
Well, maybe it was all
her
they could
hand mittens
find.
were fine.
I'm sorry, what?
Maybe it was all they could find in their time before they came.
Maybe.
Yeah, but still, I mean, if she was dressed so oddly, do you know what I mean? Especially going back to that time where, people who were different were singled out and were in danger.
Yeah.
As,
Well, and I mean, they supposedly, the three of them walked all the way from the Stones to Lollybrook. And again, they looked like they just got out of the taxi. So I don't know. Okay, so I noticed that William moves his fingers like Jamie. And I actually saw Charles talk about that's one of the traits he tries to do, but not overdo. And I noticed him doing it. And then Lord John in the scene at the British camp when they're talking, he's just kind of just a little, very subtly. Let's see. I noticed the laundresses working were taking down clean but very stained uniform breeches. And I thought, why do we only see brand new clean breeches? Who's wearing those?
Good point.
I already said that. I noticed that Black Brian had gray hair sticking out of the back of his red wig. It's like gray curls coming out back here. And I mean, that's the thing. He's supposed to be younger now than he was in the Blackjack Randall scene, and he doesn't look younger. Sorry, Andrew Whip. I thought you did a great job in that scene. And I want to know, did Claire ever get her strings untied? Because I feel
No,
like
she was still sitting there when they come back from, trying to rescue Jane. But that somebody, I saw some comments that those were her stays, because in the book he tries to undo her stays with his dirk, and she says, "Don't you cut the strands." But those weren't stays. That was the tie of her blouse. It was a cross blouse.
I thought that was a
tied in the
cute
back.
scene. That
Yeah.
It showed their humor and their playfulness, and I liked that scene. Medical anatomical.
There was not a lot in this episode. Well, Jamie is pondering you remember he says that Claire told him that a human body has 8 pints of blood in it. Well, it actually is 10.5 pints. And that came from the book. I'm not sure where, where Diana got that number from. Perhaps from an older source when people were smaller. But nowadays it's about 10.5 pints. It varies a little depending on the size of the person.
So you're saying the 8 is from the book?
Yeah, it says it in the book, and
maybe it's
in
for the
episode.
18th century people had more like
but
8.
He says Claire told him. So
Oh.
Claire's information would be from the 20th century.
Yeah.
So that's about 1.3 gallons, if you want to think about it. That's how much blood the average adult has. And a person, he says, how much can a person lose? Surprisingly, an awfully lot before organ failure starts to set in. Almost 50%, somewhere around 40, somewhere around there. And then organ failure the systems just start shutting down because they don't have enough perfusion of oxygen going on. So that was one interesting medical anatomical thing that I can say. Mm-hmm. The other one is when Claire Denzil asks her, and that was a sweet conversation between them. I thought that was on my list, but we ran out of time. Denzil asked her, have you ever had to do surgery on a family member, someone you love? And she says, no, not surgery, no. I have had to heal them at times, but never surgery. And I'm like, huh? What are you talking about, woman? She did surgery on his hand twice. Once after Wentworth and once after Saratoga, taking out an entire finger, or in the case of the show, she stitched it back up and put it back together.
Do you think she was thinking like body cavity surgery?
I think maybe that's what the writer has in mind, but let me list it and then I'll tell you what surgery is defined as, because that will help people to understand. She did his hand twice. She debrided and took care of his snake bite, as it was, she kept having to clean out the wound, and then add maggots to it and so forth. Although it wasn't in the show, Henri Christian's tonsils, Roger's cricothyroidotomy. So those are ones that I just came up with off the top of my head. There's probably more, but surgery is defined as a procedure which to remove or repair a body part or to find out whether a disease is present. It doesn't have to be a body cavity to be surgery. Orthopedic surgeons would really have an issue with that. Right?
Oh gosh.
If they knew that that's what what the definition might be. Mm-hmm. So that's something that I think was should have been not have been said in this, should have been written differently in this episode so that it was more accurate. Yeah. She did do surgery. She has done surgery on family members.
Yeah.
Repeatedly. So you had some questions?
I did. Did Claire see blood in her urine?
No. She says it's fine.
Her face looked like she did.
Well, I think, yeah. And I think that was a moment of suspense for the, audience. But had it bruised her kidney, then she likely would have blood in her urine. And that's what she said her kidney on the right was sore. It was would have been fairly close to the kidney, the location of the kidney. I imagine it was probably sore from the inflammatory proteins that are released when a person is wounded like that. The surrounding tissues get exposed to those inflammatory mediators and cause inflammation in them, even though they weren't injured themselves. So it's kind of an interesting process, that a downside of inflammation. Go ahead.
If there had been blood in her urine, would that have been a really big deal?
Yeah, it would have told her that she had kidney injury.
Okay.
And she would perhaps have been very careful about her activity, more careful about her activity to be sure that she was getting plenty of fluids and that she wasn't drinking beer or, you know, port or whatever. She was, drinking water a lot, that sort of thing. Not having a lot of protein in her diet for a little while because that stresses the kidneys. They have to process a lot of that protein. So I think that, that's the sort of thing that she probably would alter her diet mostly, and taking care not to be up on her feet too long, too much, taking it easy for longer if there had been blood in her urine. But she would have monitored it daily after that, at least daily, probably every time that she urinated, she would check it to make sure that she didn't have any
see
blood.
if it was dissipating.
Right.
Then what did you think of just the whole time, like the way Claire's recovery was portrayed? Did it seem realistic?
I thought she did a very good job of expressing the pain and the difficulty of movement. I thought that was really well done. I thought she did a terrific job on that. I really wish that they had shown us a little bit about the surgery and the repair and how he managed it, the packing of the wound with the blue veins from the Roquefort cheese and that sort of thing, so that for those who are not book readers, they could have understood it a little bit. The last time we saw her, there she is with something draped across her bosom and across her loins. And, he's getting ready to administer, to do surgery on her, Denzel is. And that's the next thing we see, she's in her nightgown. And I will say that one of the things that I think could have been done better is that when she was under laudanum in the last episode, you could see the tension in her neck muscles, and they should have been relaxed because she was under laudanum. And the same a little bit later when she was sleeping, she had tension here in her sternocleidomastoid muscles that come down here, and those should have been relaxed as she was sleeping. So those are a couple of things I noticed, but they're minor. And
I thought her pillow looked really uncomfortable.
Her pillow.
Yeah, it was like really tall, and she's like, so I could see why her
neck was bent.
Sternocleidomastoid was
sternocleidomastoid
had some tension in
it. Bingo. Score.
Yeah. Then what do you think about the way they portrayed William's facial wounds, in these scenes where he had like the red marks from his Hessian beatings? Or did you
I think they looked like they had been mostly healed.
Yeah.
But I didn't get a good look at them in the first place, or pay too much attention to them.
There was something blue up by his part when it first happened. I don't know if that was supposed to be a bruise or dirt, or I don't know what that was.
I don't know. Probably a bruise.
I didn't notice anything blue.
I actually didn't either.
Yeah, it's like blue and flat and shiny. I don't know what it's supposed to be.
I'll have to go back and look at that and see if I can.
And then
put a name to it.
Jane's suicide, poor girl. Did you think that was a realistic portrayal of that?
Yes, I did. Usually they have fake blood that looks like it's made out of corn syrup or something. Blood is not that thick, it's more watery. It will clot after a while, but I don't know, a lot of shows make the blood look like it's dyed corn syrup to me. It probably
Which is probably what it is. Yeah. They don't make it look like that. It's just what it is. How about lawyerly? Jane's situation with martial law that Lord John Grey brings up. Jamie and William rescuing her, and what kind of trouble would they be getting in? Fanny, Frances, can they just take her? She's doesn't belong to anybody. And not allowing William to claim Jane at the
Well, firstly,
house, I guess. It's not even a morgue.
she confessed, so there wouldn't have been a trial even if there wasn't martial law in place. So, you know, she would have been brought before the court and would have just pled guilty because she confessed. But they dispensed with all of that because there were no judges sitting. So there was martial law. So straight from confession to execution.
Well, martial law means what again?
The suspension of the regular judicial system, and therefore it's the military who are exercising that authority.
And that's because it's in times of war?
In times of war. Yeah.
Okay,
Because you remember in the books when Claire was taken and brought to it wasn't Wilmington she was brought to, when she was in the prison with what's her face.
Yeah, they had to go to a bunch of different little towns. I don't know.
And when Jamie went to the ship and was talking to the governor, and the governor was talking about, you know, Claire's situation, and Jamie said, "But you are the only authority because, you know, there's no courts. It's martial law. You are the only authority. Now you can release her because the judicial process is in suspense because of the situation." So that's really say. As for William and Jamie rescuing her, well, I mean, that would have been, I mean, that's a crime facilitating the escape of a prisoner. It's a crime now, you know, so they would be accessories to murder after the fact.
Ooh.
Yeah. So probably would have extended the same punishment to them as to her, you know, because there's a murder involved. And if you are breaking out the person who committed the murder, you are then an accessory after the fact. I mean, if martial law was not in place, it's a crime, so they probably would have faced punishment, but not risking punishment of death. But in this case, in the circumstances, you know, that could have been likely. And as for Frances was in the brothel, right, with Jane. So there was no parents to give any consent.
But is she the property of the brothel technically, or?
But you can't. No. You can't. She wasn't the property of the brothel, in the sense that she wasn't an indentured servant. She wasn't a slave. She was a minor, so she couldn't have entered into any kind of binding contract with them. You know, to give her services in exchange for room and board and that kind of thing. So, and there was no state to speak of for her to become a ward of the state, as though you would have here. So she was just an orphan. So, you know, anybody could have stepped up and taken care of her. Do you remember in season 5 with the Beardsley baby?
Yeah.
You know, Jamie and Claire were not related to the Beardsley baby, you know, but they took her and then they gave her to the Browns.
Right.
Do you see what I mean? So, and as for William not being able to claim Jane's body, well, yeah, I'm not so sure about that. I know it was like that in the books because, you know, once a person is dead, the state doesn't really have much interest in their remains. And so I'm not sure why legally.
They do now.
Hmm?
They do now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about then, but they do have an interest now.
Over and above family?
Oh,
well, they were saying that he said, I'm not family, so they won't let me claim her.
But I mean, how are they going to know that what are they going to ask to see his birth certificate and her birth certificate? If he turns up and says, well, she's my cousin, and I'm the last relative of the family and I want to bury her. How are they going to disprove that? This is not like modern day where they could ask for a DNA test.
That's right.
And would the state be interested enough at this point to
No,
be
not,
querying,
I don't think in those days there
yeah,
would be that.
to be
Yeah,
querying
that's
who
true.
wants to claim the body of a convicted killer who has been executed?
Yeah.
So
Well,
and maybe
suicide.
William, well, you see, maybe it's not that he couldn't claim her, but it would not have been seemly for William to claim her
Mm.
in his position and who she was and how she died.
Yeah.
Do you know what I
I
mean?
don't think he cared about that, but I don't know.
Well,
Lord John
maybe-
would have.
well,
Yeah,
Lord
maybe
John
Lord John.
would have probably said,
He
no,
said,
you want to
I
claim
need,
her, but you
this
can't.
is my half niece that I've been banging.
Eh? What?
He would have said, this is my half niece I've been banging that I'd like to get out of the.
Exactly. Or Lord John might have said, you can't claim her because you're not family, you know? And probably at the back of his mind was, no, you are Lord Ellesmere, you're a captain in the Queen's in the King's Army. You
Yeah.
can't go claiming this
Oh, so maybe Lord John
convicted
told him
prostitute.
that.
Yeah,
Okay,
who's
I'll
just
buy
been
that.
executed. You know, think of the optics.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
But there
And
was no
Lord John
legal.
is concerned about that, not so
Exactly.
much for himself, but for William's future. You know, he cares about what William is perceived. I feel. I'd like to tell a real brief story
Yes.
that ties into this business about adopting or taking a child like Fanny. When my mother was 6, her mother died bearing her 7th child, who was a little girl. The little girl survived. My grandmother passed away. But my grandfather didn't feel that he could handle this little baby. So he gave it to his brother and his wife. And there was never any kind of adoption, no paperwork. They just took her and gave her, you know, they had the same last name. And they said she was their daughter. And there was never any question about it at all. That was 1917. This is much earlier than that. So I think they could very well, you know, just take that child and say, okay, we're going to take care of her. And nobody would, you know, she's one less problem for anybody else to worry about. I don't think there would be a complaint about it myself.
They would probably have wanted her for the workhouse.
Yeah.
Put her in the workhouse. I mean,
or put her in a brothel, you know.
Yeah. Think of Charles Dickens and all those children who were grabbed up off the street and put in workhouses.
That's right.
You know, so that probably would have been her fate if she was in England.
Yeah. What did you start to ask?
Oh, I just did I guess this was your aunt.
Uh-huh.
Did she know that these were not her parents?
I believe that she did, yes.
Okay,
but I never met her.
Okay.
They moved to Hawaii and took her with her, and you know, I never had met her. I don't think my mother had much communication with her after that, along with the rest of the children in the family, the other 5 children beside my.
Back then, you know, it was letters and.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, let's go to BTS.
I've mentioned a couple of them already, but one of them is that let's see, I cannot find. There's a lot of Revolutionary War flags, but I could not find a single one that was like the one with the square set of stars and the single one in the center. So there were 12 on the periphery in a square, and then one in the center. I found circles of 12 with one in the center, but I looked through a bunch of flags. It was on the National War website, I think it's called, or something like that, where they had, I mean, there were a lot, but not that one. I'd be really interested in knowing where they got that flag from. Yeah. I also found out that I thought to myself, was beer really available in a glass bottle like that, that she could break it and use it to slice her wrists? And the answer is yes. As a matter of fact, glass bottles, brown glass bottles, were being blown as early as the 16th century for beer, specifically for beer, and they were corked, and they didn't become commercially available until toward the end of the 17th century. So in the 18th century, they certainly would have been available. And the reason why they were brown is because if they're in clear glass, the UV light from the sunlight or light causes the beer to undergo what a transition. It becomes skunky beer, it's called, because it begins to taste and smell like skunk. And and brown retards that. So that's one of the main reasons why it is brown. So I just wanted to say those two.
Yeah, those are great. Thank you.
Beer. Wow.
Well, I've heard like
Skunky beer.
this beer is skunked, like you say.
Okay.
Anyway,
I think all beer smells skunky, but
really, I like beer.
I didn't say I didn't like it, but I think it smells skunky.
I think pot smells skunky. Okay, not that I've ever smelled it. So BTS for me, nobody even laughed at that. So Flory wrote on her Instagram that, the scene from the last episode where she says, William, and where have you been? And it's that great scene. That was her first scene in the show. Isn't that amazing?
Wow.
Yeah. And she did that in January of 2023. So she may have been
2 years ago.
Yeah,
2 years
exactly.
ago.
Well, because didn't I say she's about to be 14?
She's 13 now.
Yeah. So 11 or
She was
12.
actually 11.
Yeah. Trina had some really nice things to say about Flory. She said, Flory is so amazing. Every time we have a scene with her, you're just so blown away by how brilliant she is. So
Yeah.
I think that comes across.
Yep.
I looked into Sylvia. I was curious about her hair. And it's funny because I think her hair is naturally brown, but she's been doing a red wash in her hair for years.
Okay.
Oh.
Which is interesting. I mean, I don't know why. Maybe she just likes it. But and in her like I'm Out season 7, she said, special thanks to Charles Vandervaart for being such a good, scene
Lover.
partner and a lover and scene partner and ray of sunshine on set. And she was like, big ups, unks.
What?
Big ups, unks, like uncle, like because she's his half niece. Like big ups, unks.
She brought it up.
This show is twisted. Big ups, unks. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I wonder why they made the decision not to have Fanny be tongue-tied. Well, it would have been difficult to maintain.
Yeah.
I think it would be hard for her to act out.
To maintain.
Yeah.
I found that annoying in the books. That's probably not very PC to say, but I don't know. Just reading it, I don't know.
I was curious to see if they would attempt it, because that would have been a difficult thing for a young actress to be consistently good with.
Well, it's also like Roger's scratchy throat went away. Like,
yeah, that's true.
I mean, I just don't think those things are very sustainable.
Yeah.
Let's go to favorite lines.
Oh, I had one more BTS.
Oh, go for it.
Yeah, so I mentioned the parade interview already. I don't think that Antoinette heard that, but Diana Gabaldon in a parade interview said that she gave Matt the idea that Master Raymond saved Faith, that she would have if she had written a second graphic novel, she would have explained how he resuscitated her, revived her, and nourished her. That's just want to make sure that doesn't get
But
lost.
that makes it sound like that's part of the story.
I know that's what that's part of the problem.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I
so
don't think they got this from nowhere, but
she said
I
she
mean,
gave him the idea and they ran
yeah,
with
but
it.
it was
So
in the books.
it is in
And
the
there
book.
was speculation about
But
could
Carmen's,
Faith have been, could Jane and Thing have been Faith's daughters? That was in the books.
but you guys said
Yeah.
that Jamie dispelled this idea.
Yeah, but
Jamie did
Mhm.
because,
Or did he just say like, that's not likely, or
well,
I
I
mean,
mean,
how-
that's how he dispelled it. I don't remember his exact words, but
there
he
had to
does.
be-
He tells her to stop focusing on that because that's not that
that's
that
not-
didn't
that's
happen.
improbable.
Yeah,
Well, it's
and
not as if
you
it
know,
was go
it
ahead.
could be that that Diana thought about this at one time, and that's what she was expressing to Matt. She said, if I ever would have written a second graphic novel, this is what I would have done. But that was before she had written this, where William and Jane had this encounter and the tracing of the genealogy of Jane. So that's what my thinking of it is that she hasn't run with it. She hasn't done anything with it. They're the ones that have done, other than to mention it in the book. But other than that, she didn't make it a big deal in the book. Even I didn't.
Yeah, I thought it was a passing, like, like a yearning by Claire that imagine if this and nothing more. Like that's what I thought it was in the book.
Yeah, I let myself get kind of sidetracked. I wanted to say something about Aurora Borealis and the title card, and then of course as Jane is looking at it, and she waves because her mother said that 100,000 angels will come down and take you up to heaven if you do that. Aurora Borealis in Greek and Latin means sunrise wind or dawn wind, which I thought that is really interesting. I don't know where that really came from, but or why they associated that with Aurora Borealis, but they do, and that's what the word means. And I thought it was really, that's not in the book. This is not in the books. This is all part of the story that that they came up with. Colt's Neck, did you hear that mentioned?
What?
Well, yes, the place.
Yeah, that's where she was being held. It is in Monmouth County in New Jersey. So it was, part of the battlefield area. But I don't know why they mentioned Colt's Neck. Why would they make,
Well, I mean, where is she? Over there? I mean, you got
yeah.
I guess it's a place where she is.
The only time we're going to hear of Colt's Neck.
Yeah.
She wasn't just floating around in the either.
That's
It's an interesting name. I wonder why they named it that. Must be shaped like a colt's neck.
Yeah.
Well, let's go to favorite lines. Carm, you want to kick us off?
There's a lot.
Yeah.
Lord John said, I don't recommend murder as a way of settling difficult situations. It tends to lead to complications, but not nearly as many as marriage. And that's out of the book. It's chapter 132. And I thought that's just a great line.
Great line. And some of the things in the show, I'm drawing a more direct connection than I did in the books. Because the book is there's so much that I don't know that I really directly connected that to him marrying Claire, but I certainly did in the show.
Yeah.
It was really well delivered.
That was what he was flying out.
Yeah.
Made his life quite complicated.
Oh yeah. I liked when Claire said, have you been here all night? And Jamie said, where else would I be?
Yeah. One of my favorite lines was when Jane said, Well, hell it is. That was just so full of defiance.
She
I
was a
love,
saucy girl.
well, hell it is.
Yeah.
I liked when Jamie said, "Stop talking and get on with your business." When she's being, just get it done, would you please? I thought that was very humorous and I loved it.
I liked when Lord John said, dangerous clients are a hazard of that profession.
Mm, yeah, wow.
I'm sure that's true.
What a genteel way of saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So I liked it when Claire said, will I see our daughter again? And Jamie says, I can, you will. It's what makes death easier to bear. And I thought that was a beautiful line. And her face when she asks that is just heartbreaking. It really, truly is. She was really emoting incredibly well throughout this entire episode, but it's so many things were touching her, and so close to her heart, and brought up so many old memories that she had probably thought she had mostly put to rest, and there it is right back in her life again. I just thought it was a really lovely exchange between the two of them.
Yeah, that was something I said, Antoinette, before you jumped on, is that it was so great to see the vulnerability, Claire in her vulnerability in this episode. We rarely see that.
Yeah.
And it was just beautiful. I liked when Uncle William said, when Lord John Grey said, are you in love with her? And he said, there is something about her. I can't explain it.
It's because she's
It's because they're blood relatives.
She feels like a niece or something. Anyway.
God, where the fandom's gonna kill us.
Consanguinity. Blood speaking to blood.
Exactly.
A short little line. When Ian comes back and Jamie saying, I have resigned and blah, blah, blah. And Ian says, well, will they accept that? And Jamie said, well, they'll just have to.
Yep.
Good one.
It was just so Jamie. I love seeing the little glimpses of Jamie, Jamie as he was written in the books. Sometimes he has to fight to come through, but in those short little quips, well, they just have to.
When William says, I will never call you father,
Mm-hmm.
that was, oh man, that cut Jamie to the heart. But it also brought to mind Lord John's statement in last episode, never is a very long time.
Yeah.
She was teaching him something. But, I had to think to myself, this is after Jamie put his life on the line to help him go rescue Jane, and then took Fanny off of his hands. And this is what his parting shot was. I thought, you little witch.
Yeah.
William, you need this good spanking.
There's that little brat that he used to.
Yeah.
Sometimes the bratty William comes out.
I liked when Lord John summed up, the doctor does not make a good patient, I see. When she says, I'm fine, let me look at your eye,
Oh yeah.
I was really touched by Ian's statement, and it's from the book, chapter 115. He waited, I think, until you were here for me. And that, I remember when I first read it, I was crying because our dogs mean a lot. Our dog and dogs over the years, we only have one at a time. They're family members for us. And, we treat them like family members. And it just broke my heart because, when they pass, it really upsets everybody.
Yeah.
It involves a grieving process that is quite profound. And yeah,
That was a heartbreaking scene.
yeah.
Was.
I mean, his just wailing. Oh,
You know, Rachel, bless her heart, she is so supportive of him. She was right there, you know, and then when he said he was going to go off and bury him, and she says, I'm coming with you. You know, he
Yeah.
was my family too.
Yeah.
yeah. I want to marry her,
Yeah,
actually.
she's
And
awesome.
the scene, that little scene between them when she tells him she's pregnant and his joy, his little smile lines, like
Yeah.
that was a great scene.
That was one of my favorite scenes too.
And
They
then did you
actually
see
have chemistry together, I think.
They do.
They're
do.
doing, it's doing better, yeah. They
Yeah.
have more of a deep connection,
Yeah.
more of a
There's
soulful
not that
connection.
sexual tension. There's not
Yeah.
that fizz that is
No,
there between her
it's
and
like a
William.
deep, soulful connection. Did you guys notice in that scene, you could see the firelight flickering on the pillow next to him?
Mhm.
That's what I love about this director. It's just
Yeah.
there's all these little extras.
Yes.
So I liked it when Lord John says, I suppose you think I have come here to fight you for the favors of this lady. He was being sarcastic.
Yeah.
And Jamie should have slapped him.
Jamie said, I don't. I liked when Jamie said, didn't I be calling her that?
Yeah.
And then
What did he say, my dear?
yeah,
He said, my dear. He
dear,
said,
didn't be calling her that. And then when Brian said, be not forgetful to entertain strangers, for thereby some have entertained angels unawares.
Mhm.
I'm sure you guys remember that that's from season 1, the wedding episode where Willie says that to the priest when
To
they're
the
having their
priest,
little
yeah.
battle of the
Battling the thing, yeah.
Bible verses.
Bible verses.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, I thought that was a fun callback.
Mhm.
Brian says, in grief, some folks find a way to close the doors to their hearts, but mine is still wide open, and memories come unbidden, even after all this time. I think in that little sentence, it tells us what kind of a man that he is. And I think that's a really important insight into the matrix in which the home matrix in which Jamie grew up, and why and what contributed so much to the kind of man that he is. And I thought in that one, just that one little thing, that Brian is giving us a lot of information about the history and their family and how they conducted themselves with each other. And then the other one is with Richard. Pardon me, with Roger. It's not a question of where we belong, it's when. Now, I don't remember that being in the book, but I think I thought it was a good
Good
line.
line.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is an existential question that they're going to be facing.
Mm.
Yeah, that was part of what made that scene with Bree and Brian so incongruous for me. He was like really bearing his soul, and she's like, cool.
She's like, I'm sure la-di-da. You know,
Cool. Well, I just picked these flowers, so see ya. I mean, it was just weird. Anyway. Okay,
were
so
they lilies of the valley? Did you think they were lilies of the valley? They look like they might be, and they are. They mean things like courage and love. They're representative of things like that. So I thought maybe there was a little message sent in there. If they were, I don't know if they were supposed to be lilies of the valley.
yeah,
But it's kind of like
Interesting.
a weird scene.
I will have to rewatch this episode now that I've gotten out all my angst.
I mean, most of it's really good, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, as I said, I have to rewatch this episode now that I've vented.
well, we always pick things apart. That's what we do.
Yeah.
Part of our mission.
Exactly. I liked Jamie saying, "Dinna fash, my aim's not that bad. I'd only risk stabbing ye in the arse." And she says, "Try it and I'll scream for Rachel."
Oh boy.
That was cute. And William, "I wanted to save you, Jane. Forgive me." That was heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Sweet little William. Standouts are next, and then big themes. Carmen?
Well, obviously, Kat and Sam, both
Oh,
of
you
their,
went first last time and you did them. Oh,
I'm sorry. I mean that, you know what? They did a great job.
they did.
I couldn't fault either one of them in this episode. I thought they were both just spectacular with every scene that they had, and I applaud them for it. I
Yeah.
hope they get an Emmy.
Oh, that would be
It's
so
too late.
great.
It really would.
Well, I will call out Flory then.
Mm.
I feel like she's gonna be like Sam, where she can just act with anybody. She's just that good.
She's incredible.
And she reminds me a little bit of Lauren Lyle. There's
Yeah.
just that same spark.
Spunky. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that same spark there. Yeah.
Mhm.
That I like. And she also reminds me of Laura Donnelly. You see, yeah, those are the kind of instinctive actresses that I like.
Who
And
did you
see
say?
that-
Laura Donnelly?
Yes,
Yeah.
that same spark.
At
in-
her young age, I feel like she also already is setting the pace of the scenes, which is unbelievable. At the way Lauren Lyle does and
Yeah.
Laura Donnelly does.
Yeah.
She doesn't rush. She has such a big presence with these adults. It's crazy.
Yeah,
It's
because
great.
she inhabits her character. She's
Yeah.
not performing a role.
Yeah. No, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big difference.
Mhm.
That
Yeah.
makes a big difference.
To
But I
mention
mean, you
definite.
stole my Flory.
Mhm.
You stole my Fanny. Well, no. Obviously, Jane. Jane, the actress that plays Jane was a standout for me. That
Sylvia.
whole the sequence involving her and talking to the reporter and how she described, oh, that was one of my favorite lines. I wish he was still alive so I could kill him again. He was talking about
That's such
my
an
only
Antoinette
regret
vibe.
is that he's not he's dead. He's not alive so that I could kill him again. And yeah, she was definitely a standout.
Yeah.
And for the most part, I thought the directing was deft. It was not heavy-handed at all in the direction and didn't get in the way of the story.
I don't think I mentioned this last time. One of the scenes that I thought was so amazingly well done directing wise was when that guy pulls up on the wagon, the sucking chest wound guy, and the way he shot that coming at him and then went around him. A different thing, a different director, style that could have looked like really boring, but there was so much action, and then Claire's running up. The way he filmed that whole thing just got the chaos and the, of the situation. And then by contrast, this episode, everything's quiet and there's a stillness, and I love that about him, that he has that range.
Restraint.
Yeah.
Yeah. A sense that there's some deep current of emotion running under the surface, but it's thrumming.
Yeah.
That's what I felt. Yeah.
I think Joy Phillips as Denzel is he has the tiniest little parts. But when he looks at Claire and the tears start gathering in his eyes when he said, it's hard. It was very hard to do that on someone that you love, someone that is a family member to you. And that was a tiny little bit. It was only about a minute long, but it just struck me how he he really comes across as a caring physician, a caring human being, you know, a Quaker who is trying his best to be in a war when he doesn't believe in war, but he's doing what he can, what his conscience allows him to do. And I think he plays that extraordinarily well. I said last time that they were great together as brother and sister. I still feel that way. I don't see any reason to change that opinion at all. I thought he did a great job in that one little tiny part.
I noticed like they add so much, Denzel and Rachel. I mean, they're both great actors, and then they're just their presence. It's like they are the first people who actually give to Jamie and Claire almost more than they take.
True.
It's like they're holding them in those scenes when Claire's recovering. They're just back there, they're praying, they're, you know, probably bringing them stuff, but they're just holding a space for them to just be Jamie and Claire. And there's something really, I don't know what the word is. It adds a lot while being very subtle for me. I do wish that we had Dottie and Denzel, that storyline.
Yeah.
I miss Dottie and
yeah, I mean,
Al
let's
and
give
that
him
whole
love.
thing.
He needs his own love.
Yeah.
Maybe in season 8, but I doubt it.
The ensemble for 7B, everybody at particular times. There was no weak link. I mean, there were a few that, you know, but overall, the ensemble was great. Was great. I loved how everybody brought their A game.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I felt like the
for the most part.
acting, it was when there was an issue, it was almost never the acting.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, let's do our big themes. Carmi?
Oh, I guess my big theme, and you know, I don't want to get accused of being a Katrina hater. But I think Jamie is a rock.
Mm.
And everybody turns to him if you look at it. He's, you know, Antoinette said he's the father, and they need to, for everybody, you know, they look to him for guidance, for security, for reassurance. And he delivers it. He delivers wisdom to them, you know, and he's teaching people who aren't even his relatives how to live a life that is worth living. That's not an easy thing to do. And I think Diana has written a marvelous character in Jamie. I really do. Claire too, but she has a different role than Jamie does, in my opinion. So I would say that my takeaway from this, or the big theme, is that Jamie is a rock and that people can depend on him.
And not only does he provide that guidance and that, but he's ready to shed blood for them.
Yeah. He said it in his wedding vows.
He will put his body on the line.
Yeah.
Without hesitation.
Yeah.
How much more of a sense of security can the people around him feel when they know that this man, if one, is a man of his word, and two, will put his body on the line?
Yeah.
And he's just basically enfolded Frances into that. She doesn't know it yet.
Yeah. Well, you allude to what my big theme is when you say that, because one of the things, I mean, it's a theme throughout the books, but it came home to me a lot in this episode, especially because of the Frances and the dynamic with William. It's about family, because family is not just the people who are related to you by blood. Family is who you choose, you know? And Jamie, in his role as the father figure, has chosen so many people as family and treats them as family. You know,
Yeah.
Ian is his nephew, but in a lot of ways, he has been a father to Ian. You know, he's willing, Marcelly, Fergus, you know,
Yeah.
and I always think about that scene in season 3 when Marcelly and Fergus are getting married and Jamie gives him his name. You know,
Yeah.
Yes.
Fergus Claudel Fraser.
Oh,
Yeah. And I said to him, and I just remembered, family is who you choose. And they're all different types of permutations of family. But at the end of the day, family is who you choose. You have relatives and then you have family.
Well, my big theme is incest.
Courtney, you're a bad girl.
Took the words right out of my mouth, Carmen.
Well, it is true
Naughty.
that actually Roger and Bree are related. A lot of people related around here. Okay, so no, that wasn't my real one. And mine was the same as yours, sort of, Antoinette. And it was just, I took it one little step further, that family makes sacrifices for family. You know, and that showed up a lot in this episode when the scene with Jane, and she's like, yeah, I'm finally gonna tell this guy, you know, I get to say what I want because I'm about to die. And then he brings up her sister and she's like, nope, I'm gonna still toe the line for my sister. Even Claire, you know, when she says, I've decided not to die because I knew how hard that was for me. You know, and she's like, I actually kind of want to. This is terrible, but I want to, you know, I'm doing this for you, is basically what she's saying, you know, my family. Denny talking about, you know, that how hard his surgery was to do on his family and someone that he loved, and don't do that again. You know, and it's just all over the episode. Ian, who is, you know, like Jamie's son, goes with Lord John Grey, who's part of the family. We don't really know what to call him at this moment, but you know, to go get William. William is becoming part of the family, you know, kind of,
Whether he likes it or not.
whether he likes it or not, a little bit against his will, but
It is what it is.
yeah. So, you know, and like when Ian asked Jamie, you know, will they let you do that? And Claire in that very vulnerable scene says, you know, will you take me home? He's basically like, yeah, I'm gonna stay with you, and then I'm gonna take you home, and I'm gonna pay for it. But you're my family, you're my most important person, and that's what I'm gonna do. So just, yeah, family. And then Fanny, he's doing that for William at this point. And even Rachel, you know, when the scene where they were talking about going back to the ridge, you know, I was watching her face and I was like, oh, she's thinking about Denny. And then Ian says, you'll miss your brother. And, you know, her new family, which is growing inside of her and her husband, she says, yeah, no, but is this a place we can raise our family? It's all family. Even Bree saying, you know, we have a house and we have a life in the 80s. Yeah, we have a crazy guy after us, but I miss my parents. Like I want to go be where they are. Yeah. So family. I think that's a huge theme in Outlander.
Yeah, it is. It is. And
it is, and Claire and Jamie are the focal point. And Diana is showing people throughout the world that this is how you make a marriage and how you make it last. They have their trials, they have their arguments, they have their disagreements, you know, but they make their way through it to the very end. And I think she's done a wonderful service and is doing a wonderful service to humanity by modeling this for people. This is a model for people to emulate, and if they can, in their lives. And yeah,
you know,
I agree.
I agree with you, Carmi. And she's also modeling the fact that non-traditional families,
Yes.
you know, families can look different. There's no perfect blueprint for what a family is.
Yes.
You know, because
Right.
the tent is broad. Look how broad Jamie has spread his tent, you know, and brought in so many people.
And there's more to come.
And there's more to come. Yeah, I really miss the Hardmans. I'm just sorry that we won't get to see them.
Who are the Hardmans again?
Yeah, Sylvia
And her girls.
and her 3
that
girls,
rescued
Cassidy.
Jamie.
Oh,
The
I forgot
Quakers.
their last name. Oh, right.
Yeah, I love that arc. So
I do too.
you know, but
I do too. Are we going to see them next? Does
I don't
anybody
think
know?
so. No, I don't think so.
I doubt it. I mean, they can't. I mean, we don't even have
Yeah.
Amy, what's her name, and
Yeah, they
Bobby Higgins, and
Yeah, no.
I mean, there's just so many characters. There's
Exactly.
no way they can do it.
There's no
And
way
then,
they
you know,
can.
we're always complaining, like, keep Jamie and Claire the center, and then we're like, where are all these characters? They can't do. I mean, I would trade the characters for Jamie and Claire.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me-
Yeah.
So I
I
like
agree.
how they're doing that. I miss them.
But I do miss some. Like
Yeah.
Antoinette said, I miss the Hardmans. They were an interesting family.
Yeah. And they brought out such a different side to both Jamie and
Yep.
Claire. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Anyway, I love that. I love that storyline.
Well, we did it. So,
We did it.
ladies and gentlemen, just kidding. I am leaving on Sunday
Okay.
to go on a much needed vacation. So I would like to reconvene on the 10th if Mondays are still our day of choice.
Okay. 10th of February.
Yep.
Okay.
And we'll do 7/13, which we skipped over. And then I'd like to meet like every other week and do, you know, go back and do 701s through 708, I guess. And then we have a few back in season 4 we haven't done. And
Yeah, because we're heading into a long.
Oh, well, there's lots we could do because there's lots, you know, that we haven't done. So
Yeah.
so Blood of My Blood is supposed to be coming out in the
This summer.
summer.
Yeah.
But I'm not watching it.
Well, that's TBD for me. Like, I don't know if I'll be into it.
Some of the little snippets I've seen, nah.
I have to say that the actress who's playing Claire's mother looks so much like her.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And she's got some of the same facial expressions. I was very impressed with that.
Well, I'm sure they study all that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I think so.
Somebody was commenting that even Brian had Jamie mannerisms, which he would have had to, you know.
Yeah.
Well, you stay warm tonight, Antoinette.
Yeah. Well, is your heat on?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
It kicked back in when the power came back on. So we're good.
And you too, Courtney. My gosh, you're way colder than.
Yeah, no, it's warmed up. So like our overnight, like it's 15 right now.
Oh, that's so warm.
Well, it's been, Antoinette, it's been like
She said it was -7.
-7, 3, 2, 0.
Good grief.
know,
I don't
that's
think I've ever
ridiculous.
been in that cold of weather
That's
before.
but-
I'm gonna say good night, ladies. I
Good
love
night.
you
too.
all. And
Love you.
I look forward
Safe
to our
trip.
discussions.
Yep, me too. And I'll see you on the 10th. Okay.
Have
You
a
be
safe
safe.
trip. Yeah.
I
And
will.
send us updates on what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
I
I'm
will.
out.
It'll be-
I'm out.
Bye, Antoinette.
Safe travels.
Love you.
Bye-bye.
Yep, we had a good time. Take
Okay.
care, hon. Love
You
you.
too. Enjoy your family.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.